The Guardian's Choice. Captain Maya Torres stood at the viewport of the medical transport ship Mercy's Hand, watching starlight ripple across the quantum shields. After 15 years as a combat medic in the Earth Federation Marines, she'd chosen this posting hoping to leave violence behind. The Mercy's Hand was supposed to be her fresh start, a chance to focus purely on healing. The first sign that this day would be different came as a whisper through the ship's hull. A sound so faint that Maya might have missed it if not for her combat-heightened senses. A soft, crystalline chiming that didn't belong among the usual rhythms of her ship. "Computer, full spectrum analysis of that sound," she ordered, already moving toward the source. Her hand instinctively checked the modified medical scanner at her hip, a habit from her military days. "Analysis complete," the AI responded. "Sound pattern matches known vocalizations of juvenile Etherians. No registered Etherian passengers or crew currently aboard." Maya's steps quickened. The Etherians were a peaceful species of crystalline beings who could channel and manipulate light through their translucent bodies. Their children were especially vulnerable, their crystalline forms not yet hardened against the galaxy's harsh realities. The sound led her to the secondary cargo hold, specifically to a storage compartment that should have been sealed. Maya overrode the lock with her medical authorization and found herself staring at three small forms huddled in the darkness. Young Etherians, their crystal bodies barely the size of her forearm, emanating pulses of fearful blue light. "Hello, little ones," Maya said softly, kneeling to appear less threatening. "I'm Captain Torres. This is my medical ship." The smallest one's light flickered with what might have been hope. As Maya's scanner revealed signs of stress and minor crystal fractures, the ship's alert system blared to life. "Warning. Unidentified vessel approaching. Energy signature matches known Blackstar Syndicate configurations." Maya's blood ran cold. The Blackstar Syndicate were notorious throughout the sector, smugglers and bounty hunters who operated in legal gray areas, claiming to retrieve lost property for wealthy clients. Their methods were brutal, their reputation worse. The largest of the young Etherians let out a terrified chime, its light dimming to nearly black. Maya didn't need a translator to understand, these children were running from the syndicate. "Computer, seal all access to the medical bay," Maya commanded. "Initiate privacy protocols and purge all records of this conversation." Authorization Torres Alpha 7. "Captain, regulations require." "Override. Execute now." As security barriers hummed into place, Maya turned back to the frightened refugees. Their lights had shifted to a curious purple as they watched her, fear warring with desperate hope. "Listen carefully," she said, meeting their gaze. "I was a combat medic before I captained this ship. Do you know what that means?" Their lights pulsed with confusion. "It means I know how to heal people, and I know how to fight to protect them. No one is taking you anywhere you don't want to go. Not while I'm breathing." The smallest one drifted forward cautiously, its crystalline form brushing against Maya's outstretched hand. The touch sent a tingling sensation up her arm, carrying emotions of gratitude and trust. The other two followed, their lights gradually shifting from fearful blues to cautious golds. Maya stood, squaring her shoulders as she began gathering supplies and preparing defenses. The syndicate was about to learn why humans had earned a reputation for fierce protection of those in their care. They would discover that the most dangerous opponents weren't always those trained for combat, but those who had sworn to heal and protect. "Computer, begin recording," Maya ordered. Personal log, Captain Maya Torres of the Medical Transport Mercy's Hand. "I am invoking Emergency Medical Protocol 7, taking custody of 3 juvenile patients requiring immediate protective care." She allowed herself a grim smile. "And may whatever gods are listening have mercy on anyone who tries to interfere with my treatment plan." The young Etherians watched her work, their lights now pulsing with curious patterns of gold and green. They didn't understand yet, but they would. Sometimes the fiercest guardians were the ones who had sworn to heal first. Maya checked her medical scanner, already planning how to repurpose the ship's medical equipment for defense. Lines of defense. The Black Star Syndicate's first transmission arrived exactly as Maya expected, all legal jargon and thinly veiled threats. She stood in the medical bay's secure communications room, watching the mercenary commander's hologram flicker before her. Commander Darius Kane was human, which somehow made it worse. He wore the Syndicate signature black armor, his scarred face set in what he probably thought was an intimidating expression. Captain Torres, Kane's voice dripped false courtesy, we have registered claims on 3 Etherian specimens that our sensors indicate are aboard your vessel. Under Section 47 of the Frontier Accords. This is a medical transport, Maya cut him off, noting how his jaw clenched at the interruption. I have 3 juvenile patients under emergency medical protection. Any attempt to interfere with their treatment will be considered a hostile action against a neutral medical facility. Captain, surely you understand the legal ramifications of harboring fugitive property. Property? Maya's voice could have frozen plasma. Behind her, the young Etherian's lights pulsed anxiously, but she kept her focus on the screen. Interesting choice of words, Commander. Please, continue explaining how you'd like to violate about 15 different medical protection treaties. I'm recording this for the Galactic Medical Council's archives. Her first officer, Raj Patel, chose that moment to burst into the communications room, his dark eyes wide with concern. Captain, they're threatening military action. Are they? Maya's smile grew sharper. Computer, please inform our guests about the defensive capabilities of a Class 1 medical transport. Standard armaments include point defense systems rated for meteor protection, shield generators calibrated for solar radiation, and emergency containment fields, the AI responded. Additionally, the medical bay contains approximately 943 compounds that, if weaponized, could incapacitate 89% of known sentient species. Commander Kane's expression darkened. You dare threaten? Threaten? Oh no, Commander. I'm simply providing relevant medical information. For instance, did you know that standard combat armor like yours has fascinating vulnerabilities to certain neural inhibitors? I have 16 published papers on the subject. Raj moved closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Captain, the ship cannot withstand a direct assault. Perhaps if we negotiate. The smallest Etherian chimed fearfully, its light dimming to deep blue. Maya reached back without looking, letting its crystalline form brush against her hand. The touch sent memories flooding back, other children she'd sworn to protect, other lines she'd drawn in the sand. Exo Patel, she said quietly, I respect your position, but these children are my patients. The only negotiation will be how quickly the Syndicate leaves. They have boarding pods, Raj warned. Military-grade equipment. Maya's laugh made both Raj and Commander Kane pause. Military-grade? How interesting. I have 15 years of combat medical experience, 2 degrees in xenobiology, and enough stims in my system to restart a dying star. Would you like to compare qualifications, Commander? She turned to fully face the screen, letting him see the steel in her eyes. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to back your ship off to a safe distance, or I'm going to demonstrate exactly why human medical professionals are required to take an oath to do no harm. Because Commander, her smile disappeared, that oath is the only thing holding me back. The young Etherian's lights had shifted from fearful blue to something brighter, almost golden. They didn't understand her words, but they understood the tone. Here was someone who would fight for them. You have 1 hour to comply, Maya concluded. After that, I stop being diplomatic. End transmission. The screen went dark, leaving Maya alone with Raj and the children. Her first officer's expression was a mix of admiration and concern. The crew will support whatever you decide, Captain. But we need a plan. Maya was already moving, her hands flying over medical control panels. Computer, begin converting the quarantine fields to variable frequency. Let's see how Syndicate boarding armor handles a few thousand rads of targeted radiation. Captain, the AI hesitated, that would violate several safety protocols. Yes, Maya agreed, checking the seals on her medical supplies, yes it would. Add it to my tab. The Etherians watched her work, their lights now pulsing with curious patterns of gold and violet. The smallest one had taken to floating near her shoulder, occasionally making soft chiming sounds that her translator was beginning to recognize as something close to trust. You can't win this, Raj said softly. Maya paused in her work, looking at the three small beings who had placed their trust in her. With all due respect, XO, winning isn't the point. Some lines have to be drawn, some battles have to be fought, even if victory isn't certain. She smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. Besides, they're the ones who picked a fight with a combat medic. Poor tactical decision, really. As if in response, the ship's proximity alerts began to wail. The Syndicate had made their choice. Maya squared her shoulders and took a deep breath. Computer, initiate medical protocol Torres Alpha. Let's give our guests a proper welcome. Time to show the galaxy why the most dangerous humans weren't the ones who were trained to kill, but the ones who had sworn to heal. Breaking point. The first breach attempt came exactly where Maya expected, the auxiliary medical storage unit, theoretically the weakest point in her defenses. She watched through the security feeds as the Syndicate's boarding pod latched onto the ship's hull like a metallic parasite. Computer, status of defensive measures in Section C. Maya asked, her fingers dancing across the medical bay's control panel. All preparations complete, Captain. Though I should note that using quarantine fields as weapon delivery systems violates approximately. Save the violation count for my court-martial, Maya interrupted, checking her medical scanner readouts. The young Etherians huddled near her workstation, their lights pulsing between anxious indigo and determined gold. The smallest one, whom she'd started calling Nova for its habit of flaring bright when excited, chimed questioningly. Don't worry, she assured them. This is going to get loud, but you're safe. The ship shuddered as the boarding pod's cutting beams engaged. Maya watched the temperature reading spike around the breach point and smiled. The Syndicate was about to learn some interesting lessons about human medical innovations. The first boarders burst through in sealed combat suits, weapons raised. They immediately stumbled as the modified quarantine field hit them. Maya had spent hours calibrating it to affect their inner ear structure, making every step feel like walking on shifting gravity. Fascinating case of vertigo you have there, she announced over the room's comm system. Fortunately, I have just the treatment. She triggered the next sequence. The air filtration system, normally used to maintain sterile conditions, began pumping out a carefully calculated mixture of neural inhibitors. Nothing lethal. She was still a doctor, after all, but definitely unpleasant. The lead boarder managed 2 more steps before his legs gave out. What is this? He growled, his translator struggling with his slurring speech. Just a little cocktail I whipped up. Don't worry, the paralysis is temporary. Mostly. Maya watched as 3 more Syndicate warriors collapsed. Consider it a professional demonstration of why you shouldn't annoy someone who knows exactly how your nervous system works. Through another security feed, she saw the second boarding pod positioning itself near the primary medical bay. Time for Phase 2. Computer, initiate sterilization protocols in sectors 4 through 7. Deploying high-intensity UV radiation pulses, the AI responded, with what might have been admiration. I feel compelled to note that this particular application of medical equipment is creative. The Syndicate's combat armor was designed to withstand conventional weapons. It wasn't, however, rated for the concentrated bursts of radiation normally used to sterilize surgical equipment. The effect wasn't deadly, but it did play havoc with their suit systems. A new alert flashed across her screen, an incoming transmission from the Syndicate's ship. Commander Kane's face appeared, rage evident in every feature. This is your final warning, Captain Torres. You have committed acts of aggression against. No, Commander, Maya cut him off, her voice arctic. You attempted to breach a neutral medical vessel. You endangered my patients. Under Galactic Medical Convention Article 15, I am now authorized to use any and all means necessary to protect this ship and those under my care. She leaned closer to the screen. Would you like me to demonstrate what any and all means looks like when applied by someone with extensive knowledge of human biology? You're bluffing. One medical transport against. Tell me, Commander, did you know that the human nervous system has fascinating vulnerabilities to certain combinations of commonly available medical compounds? I did my thesis on it. Would you like to see a practical demonstration? I've got about 16 different solutions that could make your entire crew experience what it feels like to have their skin inside out. Temporarily, of course. Nova chose that moment to float into view of the transmission, its crystalline form pulsing with what Maya swore was defiance. The other young Etherians followed, their combined light casting shadows across her face. My patients are not property, Commander, Maya said softly. They are children. And if you want them, her smile could have cut diamond, you'll have to get through me first. Care to test your luck? The transmission cut off abruptly. Maya watched as the Syndicate ship's engines flared, maintaining their distance but not retreating. They were regrouping. Computer, begin recalibrating our defenses, she ordered. Something tells me the next round won't be so easy. She turned to her crew, who had gathered in the medical bay. Anyone who wants to leave, now's your chance. What comes next, it won't be pretty. Raj stepped forward, his expression resolute. We're with you, Captain. All of us. Around him, the crew nodded. The young Etherian's lights swirled with determination, matching the resolve she saw in her crew's faces. Maya touched the medical scanner at her hip, wondering if she had crossed a line somewhere between healer and protector. But looking at the children under her care, she knew it didn't matter. Some lines had to be crossed to protect what mattered most. All right then, she said, turning back to her controls. Let's show them why you should never corner someone who knows how to take you apart and put you back together. The battle for the Mercy's hand was just beginning, and Maya Torres was about to demonstrate why humanity's healers could be its most formidable defenders. The price of mercy. Word of Maya's defiance spread through the Mercy's hand like a quantum wave, impossible to contain and equally impossible to ignore. She could hear the debates raging through the ship's comm channels as she continued fortifying the medical bay's defenses. Captain, the computer interrupted her work, Chief Engineer Chen is requesting entry. She is alone and unarmed. Maya glanced at the young Etherians, now resting in a makeshift nest of medical blankets, their lights pulsing softly with peaceful dreams. Security scan. Let her in. The medical bay doors hissed open to admit Lin Chen, her usual immaculate appearance somewhat disheveled after hours of maintaining the ship's strained systems. She had served aboard the Mercy's hand longer than anyone else, and Maya had always valued her practical wisdom. 3 more Syndicate ships just entered the system, Lin announced without preamble. They'll be here in less than 4 hours. Maya's hands stilled on her equipment. The children won't survive in Syndicate custody. You know what they do to their retrieved property. I know. Lin's voice held old pain. I was there during the Arcturus incident, when they retrieved those Centaurian refugees. She moved closer, lowering her voice. But Maya, 4 Syndicate warships against 1 medical transport. Nova stirred in the nest, its light flickering with troubled dreams. Maya moved to adjust its blanket, her touch gentle. The young Etherian's light immediately calmed, shifting to peaceful gold. Did I ever tell you why I left the Marines? Maya asked quietly. You never talk about it. There was a colony on Europa. Small research outpost, mostly scientists and their families. Pirates hit it while we were on patrol nearby. Maya's voice grew distant, lost in memory. By the time we arrived, they had already taken what they wanted, including the children. Our orders were to secure the colony and wait for reinforcements. Lynn's expression softened with understanding. But you didn't. I took our medical shuttle and went after them. Against orders, against regulations, against common sense. Found them 3 days later in the asteroid belt. Maya's fists clenched. They had already, some of the children. She fell silent, and Lynn waited patiently. I saved who I could, Maya finally continued. Used everything I knew about medicine and combat to get those kids out. When it was over, Command gave me a choice, an honorable discharge or a court-martial. I chose to leave. Thought I could do more good as a civilian doctor. She laughed softly. Funny how things come full circle. A alert chimed on the main console, the syndicate ships were accelerating. Lynn studied the tactical display, her engineer's mind clearly calculating odds. We could try to run, she suggested. The quantum drive would tear itself apart at maximum burn, Maya finished. And even if we survived the jump, they'd just hunt us down again. No, we make our stand here. The medical bay doors opened again, admitting Raj and several other crew members. They carried supplies, weapons, and determined expressions. Engineering team reporting for duty, one of the younger techs announced. Chief Chen's been teaching us some interesting modifications for the medical equipment. Maya raised an eyebrow at Lynn, who shrugged. Thought you could use some help turning your sick bay into a fortress. Besides, she smiled grimly, I've always wanted to see what happens when you cross a tissue regenerator with a plasma conduit. The young Etherians had awakened, their lights pulsing with curious patterns as they watched the crew work. The largest one, whom Maya had named Atlas for its protective behavior toward the others, drifted over to inspect the modifications. Its crystalline form cast rainbow patterns across the equipment. Captain, Raj called from the communications station, we're receiving a general broadcast from the syndicate fleet. They're offering safe passage to any crew member who helps them retrieve their property. The medical bay fell silent as every eye turned to Maya. She looked at her crew, engineers, medics, and support staff, none of them trained for combat. Then she looked at the 3 young Etherians, who had trusted her with their lives. You all know what's coming, she said quietly. I won't order anyone to stay. If you want to leave. With all due respect, Captain, Lynn interrupted, shut up. She turned to face the crew. Anyone who wants to abandon children to the syndicate can leave now. The rest of us have work to do. Not a single person moved toward the door. Maya felt something tighten in her chest. Here was humanity at its finest, not in grand battles or heroic charges, but in quiet moments of moral choice. In people choosing to stand against darkness, even at great personal cost. Right then, she said, returning to her work with renewed determination. Let's give the syndicate a lesson in why you should never underestimate a ship called Mercy. The young Etherians' lights blazed with brilliant gold, as if reflecting the courage they saw in these humans who had chosen to protect them. The line was drawn. Now they just had to hold it. As Maya watched her crew prepare for the coming storm, she remembered something her old combat instructor had said, the most dangerous fighter isn't the one with the biggest weapons, but the one with the most to protect. Looking at her makeshift family of humans and aliens, healers and defenders all, she knew they had everything to protect. And that made them very dangerous indeed. Legacy of Light. The syndicate fleet arrived in perfect attack formation, 4 warships against 1 medical transport. Their black hulls seemed to swallow the starlight, a visible representation of the darkness they brought to the galaxy. Inside the Mercy's Hands medical bay, Maya watched their approach with steady eyes. Final systems check, she ordered, her voice calm despite the tension humming through the ship. Status report. Medical bay defenses at full power, Lynn reported from her jury-rigged engineering station. Though I should mention that calling these modifications medical equipment is now more metaphor than fact. Quarantine fields recalibrated, Raj added. Ready to deliver your special cocktails, Captain. The young Etherians hovered near Maya's station, their crystalline forms pulsing with a mix of fear and determination. Nova, the smallest, chimed softly, a sound Maya had come to recognize as encouragement. Commander Kane's face appeared on the main screen, his scarred features twisted with rage. This is your last chance, Torres. Surrender the specimens, and we'll let your crew live. Maya's response was to activate the ship-wide comm. This is your captain speaking. All hands, battle stations. Remember your training, trust your teammates, and know that whatever happens next, you've already proven why humanity is feared not for our weapons, but for our capacity to care. She cut the transmission to Kane mid-protest and turned to her crew. They'll try to breach multiple points simultaneously. Don't let their numbers intimidate you. We're not fighting with weapons, we're fighting with knowledge, innovation, and the most dangerous motivation of all, the need to protect. The first impacts rocked the ship as the Syndicate began their assault. Multiple boarding pods latched onto the hull, their cutting beams flaring to life. First wave incoming, Raj announced. Sectors 3, 5, and 7. Execute defense pattern Alpha, Maya ordered. Let's show them why you don't attack a medical ship. The modified quarantine fields activated as the first boarders breached the hull. Syndicate troops, expecting conventional resistance, found themselves facing an invisible enemy that turned their own bodies against them. Neural inhibitors filled the corridors, causing disorientation and panic. Second wave launching, Lin reported. They're adapting their armor systems. Switch to Protocol Beta, Maya commanded. Time to get creative. The ship's tissue regenerators, recalibrated to affect the molecular bonds in the Syndicate's armor, began their work. Boarding parties found their supposedly impenetrable suits becoming brittle, cracking like egg shells. But the Syndicate hadn't come unprepared. A massive explosion rocked the Mercy's hand, sending equipment crashing to the deck. Direct hit to medical bay shields. Raj shouted. They're using focused ion cannons. Our defenses can't take much more. The young Etherians' lights flared with terror, their forms huddling closer together. Maya reached out to steady them, and in that touch, something extraordinary happened. Their crystalline bodies resonated with her ship's systems, creating patterns of light that danced across the medical bay's instruments. Lin's eyes widened as she studied her readings. Captain, the Etherians, they're interfacing with our equipment somehow. The energy signatures are unlike anything I've seen. Maya looked at the children, really looked at them, and understood. They weren't just hiding, they were growing, learning, adapting. Just as she had turned medical equipment into weapons, they had learned to turn their fear into strength. Nova, she said softly to the smallest one, show me what you can do. The young Etherian's form blazed with sudden brilliance. Energy cascaded through the ship's systems, transforming Maya's jury-rigged defenses into something new. The quarantine fields shimmered with crystalline patterns, becoming barriers that the Syndicate's weapons couldn't penetrate. Multiple ships approaching. Raja's voice cracked with tension. Energy signatures, their galactic patrol. On the main screen, a new fleet emerged from quantum space, sleek patrol vessels responding to the distress call Maya had sent hours ago. But she knew they weren't here to rescue her. They were here to witness. Commander Kane's face appeared again, desperate now. Torres. You have no idea what those specimens are worth. Their species' ability to manipulate energy, they're worth more than your entire crew. Maya stood, the young Etherians floating beside her like living stars. That's where you're wrong, Commander. They're not specimens, and they're not worth anything, because they're priceless. They're children, learning and growing and becoming something wonderful. She smiled, and there was both compassion and steel in it. And they just helped demonstrate why humanity is both feared and respected across the galaxy. Not because we're the strongest or the most advanced, but because we will stand and protect those who need us, no matter the cost. The galactic patrol ships moved into position, weapons trained on the Syndicate fleet. But it was Maya's next words that truly ended the battle. "You wanted to see their worth, Commander. Watch carefully." She turned to the three young Etherians. "Show them what you've learned about humanity's greatest strength." As one, the children's crystalline forms blazed with light, not the fearful blues or cautious golds of before, but a brilliant, pure white that filled the medical bay. Energy poured from them into the ship's systems, not destroying but healing, strengthening, protecting. The Mercy's hands' shields transformed into crystalline barriers that the Syndicate's weapons couldn't touch. "This," Maya announced to the watching patrol ships, "is what happens when you combine humanity's determination to protect with the unlimited potential of those we choose to defend. Commander Kane, your choice is simple: retreat, or face not just us, but the consequences of attacking a medical vessel in front of the entire galactic patrol fleet." The Syndicate ships began powering down their weapons. On the screen, Kane's face showed the bitter recognition of defeat. As the patrol vessels moved to take the Syndicate fleet into custody, Maya knelt beside her young charges. Their lights had softened to a gentle, confident glow. "You know," she said softly, "I became a doctor to heal people. Became a captain to help them. Never expected to become a teacher as well." She smiled as Nova chimed happily. "But that's the thing about humanity that the galaxy keeps learning. We don't just protect, we nurture, we teach, we help others grow strong." "Captain," Lynn called from her station, grinning, "the patrol is requesting permission to board. They want to know what exactly happened here." Maya looked at her crew, engineers, medics, and support staff who had become warriors when needed. She looked at the young Etherians, who had transformed from frightened refugees into shining examples of possibility. And she knew exactly what to tell the patrol. "Tell them," she said, "that they just witnessed why the galaxy will never forget. When humanity stands between the innocent and those who would harm them, we don't just fight, we transform. We heal. We protect. And we teach others to do the same." The young Etherians' lights pulsed in perfect harmony with the ship's systems, a testament to what could happen when humanity's compassion met the universe's infinite potential. It wasn't just a victory, it was a lesson, one that would echo across the stars. For in that moment, on a medical transport called Mercy's Hand, humanity had once again proven that its greatest weapon wasn't technology or force, but its unwavering determination to protect and nurture those in need. And that was a force that no darkness in the galaxy could ever truly defeat.